On today's show, we're going to be talking about design systems contracting. Can you create a successful design system through contracted work? Is it a recipe for success, or does it present unique challenges that could impact the system's effectiveness? I'm Luke Murphy, and I'm joined by my co host, Michelle Chin. We're both design advocates at zeroheight, the design system management platform, and this is Design System WTF. So, contracting, huh? Have you ever been a
Yeah,
design systems contractor?
I've not been a contractor. I do
Okay.
consulting as part of my role as a design advocate, but not like embedded in a team.
Yeah.
But I've worked with contractors and I've worked with a contracting agency, not directly, but been part of an effort that included a agency to build a design system. One
Yeah. See,
design
my
system to rule them all.
my design system journey started with wow. I mean, I think it's pre-design systems, but it was back in the days of pattern libraries and style tiles and stuff. That was basically what I'd do is
Nice.
I'd just helicopter in on very early stage projects, set up their pattern library, and then bugger off. Uh, and, and I think that's probably actually a good place to start with with experiences with working with code because we know a lot of contractors and consultants as well, and folks who work agency side as well, like the good folks at YLD in London who helped us with Converge a couple of years ago, and who run Design Systems London. I know they do a lot of design systems work, and it is a bit of a pros and cons list, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I you it depends. I think it's like really like you have to set the right expectations with
Yes.
the agency and with yourself. Like I think that's like kind of the pitfalls that I've seen where it didn't work out.
Yeah, I
So
think that's I think that's the thing, and I think that's probably like one of the we'll start off with a I was going to say a con, but it's not really a con. It is just a common pitfall when it comes to folks being, as I kind of like put it before, helicoptered in to kind of solve the design system problem.
yeah,
Um, and it is that whole, it's the problem that you have with most design systems where it's like it is not a one off project. So bringing people in for a set amount of time with a set amount of deliverables and expectations around that can mean that it's not set up in a particularly scalable way.
yeah, yeah.
Is that? Do you think that's fair to say? Is that the experience you've had in the
That's
past,
kind of
or
what happened, yeah. Like it's like, oh, we need a design system to unify all of these products. So there's like 30 some odd products, like, and not even counting the devices that the endpoints. So we had this contractor come in, this agency, and they were given 3 months to build the entire unified design system. So we're talking about like
oh,
legacy
easy?
products, enterprise, like consumer, like B2C type
Oh,
products, like, and make all of that into one design system in 3 months. And like our products are complicated, so because enterprise, right? So I think that's like the pitfall is like they were given 3 months to do it, and that wasn't like you need 6 months to learn the scope of the projects and the products before you can even like make a design system. But they
yeah.
stayed with us for like a year and a half, maybe, right? So, but I mean, the output was nothing. Like it was terrible. I mean, so it was funny because what ended up happening is like I was running a small like grassroots design system for the product I was working on, and they ended up copying a lot of what we had, which I think our design system team kind of felt validated. We're like, look at this, but I don't know. At the same time, like
I mean,
they
yeah.
weren't set up for success, but yeah. But
I
it
think
was
I,
kind of scary, yeah. Like the amount of money that you spend a year and a half with nothing to result in it.
I mean, to be fair, I think this is a problem that I've seen in a lot of businesses with agencies and contractors for any project.
Yeah,
And it's like I've definitely had it. I've had it in multiple areas, like both on the product side, also product consultancy as well. When your product team is not, I don't know, there's something that's not going right with like your product management or whatever. You just fly in a product consultant to help iron out
yeah,
something on marketing side as well. It's usually, and most of it does boil down to the fact that you're kind of expecting a silver bullet, quick,
yeah,
cheap,
yeah.
easy
If
solution,
from a business
and it's not.
perspective, like yeah, like from a stakeholder business perspective, oh, if we don't have time to create a design system and I want my current engineering team and design teams focused on creating features. Let's just outsource the stuff because all they're going to do is make buttons, right? Like that's
Yeah.
kind of like the simplification of it. It's like we can compartmentalize that stuff out and they can do it and we'll have it. And then we don't have to like hem and haw about resources. But then you're kind of building that design system in a silo because you still do need to understand the product, which
Mm.
means talking to your engineers and designers, right? Like, so it's not completely compartmentalized and silver bullet, like perfect, right?
In saying that, I do think that I do think that there are some ways to help avoid this happening. Um, I think that one, just really trying to push people away from the fact that it's not going to be a silver bullet. It is a if you're thinking about doing this, because usually it comes down to resourcing, right? Usually it is
Yeah.
around a we can't commit to long term resource right now, or we can't commit to like hiring somebody right now, or we've got a hiring freeze, or whatever it is. Like it is usually just seen that it is a cheaper, safer option because you can get rid of them easily as well. Um, to bring them in. If that decision is kind of feels unavoidable, um, then there are, I think, some things that can help change it. One is to set that expectation that this is not going to be as good as having an in-house team. For one, two, having it the expectation definitely being set that this is the start of a long-term product or like long-term infrastructure project that is not going to stop when the agency like basically know what that end game is, know what the step after the agency is. It could be that you're going to commit to having an agency on hand to
Yeah.
because there are also some pros around that. You know, agencies can scale really well, like in terms of the resource they have. They sometimes have really deep expertise in that area, not your business. So that's another issue. Um, um, but you know, in that area, they can have that expertise. So it could be something that you go, okay, cool, we're going to commit to like paying this agency for the next 5 or 10 years to maintain the design system. I don't know if I've ever seen that work, but you know,
Yeah.
that's another thing.
5 to
Um,
10 years is a long time. I think
it is.
I think, like, the idea of, like, embedding, like, a consultant, like, agency
Yeah,
with your design team, right? Like, working in
yeah,
partnership, so they're, because I think, like, 8 Shapes might do this, like, with Nathan Curtis, like, they'll jump in and partner with a
yeah.
team and kind of help them, not just get the design system off the ground, but help them come up with, like, a roadmap and a plan and a governance strategy. So you're not just, "Here are some pieces to build with, good luck." It's like you're kind of helping them shepherd into this whole, like, infrastructure and behavioral change, right? So
That was actually like similar. Like I was going to say that don't even consider it if you don't have at least one person in house whose like job it is to manage that project. And that is needs to be one of their sole jobs because it is that whole thing. You need the resource internally, and you need them to come in and embed in, and have that like strong point of connection with the business. Otherwise, they're just going to be this satellite resource that kind of gets used in a really inefficient way. I know I've made this mistake over. Don't be Luke. Like, don't do this. I've made this mistake too many times, and I've got to learn that it's like if you're going to use external resource like that, you need to have a good, strong point of contact that is managing that relationship and making sure that they're as embedded into the team as possible. Because if they're not embedded into that team, you're going to be getting like, 20% of their effectiveness. Um, I don't know. I think that's definitely one way that you could potentially um, make it work as best it can.
yeah, I
Um,
mean, it's interesting because I am usually on the hunt for a lot of different, like, companies' design systems, so I'll, like,
yeah,
try to, like, enter a company's name and then design system to see if I can find their public site, and a lot of times they're not public, but what I'll end up finding out is that I'll find a designer who was working at an agency who created that design system for that bigger company, and I'm like, "Oh, this." I can find a couple, it looks like success stories, right? I mean, obviously, it's a portfolio, but like it's like, oh, like there can be some times where agencies actually do really great work for companies and their
mm,
design systems, right? So
yeah,
um
yeah. And I think that's the thing. If you are considering it as well, I would definitely say that like you need to you need to shop around and find those people. Like, I think if a, I don't know, maybe I'm just blanket statementing this, but I think that it is, probably a pretty fair generalization to make is if the agency doesn't have strong expertise in that particular in design systems, like, don't bother. If
Yeah.
they say they can do it, but they can't back it up with actual good work to show that they can do it, and ideally with like a point of reference at a previous company, then there's probably no point. And there are some great, like, we could list off folks like Sparkbox, and I mean, when they were still around, Super Friendly, and Fab and Avel, and Frog in Europe, and YLD. I've heard great things about. So there are folks out there who have these expertise in design systems. Um, go for them. Don't just assume that because somebody says that they can do something that they're gonna be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially with design systems, because of how foundational it is, you can't
Mm,
really afford to screw that up, um, because you're just not gonna get what you want. But at the same time, like, I think if you can, and I also think that, it might come at a pretty penny to do this, right? If you're gonna go with
yeah.
a good agency, a reputable agency that actually can do design work, it's not gonna be cheap. But if you're under a budget, like, maybe there's some things you can compartmentalize. Like, I know, in the past we've hired like a consultancy to create like illustration sets for us. So, we work with them in terms of, like, our brand and our style and the vibe that we're going with. And they create illustrations, and that's worked out because it's nice and compartmentalized.
Yeah.
And it's still, it was a good way to get some work done without having to sacrifice our actual product designers, who were working on other things. So I do
Yeah,
that.
and I think also there's also a difference between, like, getting agency teams in and also like contractor or consultancy, like individual consultants into your team as well. Like, have you had, because I know that we wanted to talk a little bit about if you wanted to be a consultant or a like contractor in
Yeah.
design systems as well.
I've
Um,
had I've had some people, like, come in as contractors to help with the design system, so they're usually building components and kind of building the variations, so doing a lot of the production work, because
mm,
we had designers making a lot of the design decisions around the design system and putting in feedback. And we had people, we had contractors, like, doing some of the documentation writing as well as building the components. And that was nice. Um,
I think it's actually, and seems to be a. Actually, I don't even think it's a trend. I know a lot of people who do design system contracting, and I know quite a few people who are transitioning from in-house roles into being like contractors and consultants on design systems. I think it feels like a little bit of a no-brainer for some folks, especially the more senior they get, when they're getting to that like design system lead level. It seems to be pretty. I don't know. My hunch is that a lot of companies aren't wanting to invest in full-time hires for like senior design systems people because there's still not that buy-in at that level, but they're a lot happier to get consultants in. I'm just saying, it's like, if you're in that position, it is not a bad thing to do. um from like a personal level, in terms of if you're considering going into like design system consultancy and contracting. One, opportunity for lots of exposure to different design systems, which is great. Oh, thanks Apple for giving me a thumbs up to that. And two, um, it's a little bit of a gold rush at the moment, and there's a fair bit of money in it. There's good
yeah.
money in it.
I was at a meetup, and I met this person who was laid off but did design system work, and he started doing, like, contract work, like small 3 to
Yeah.
6 month contracts with different companies. And he loved it because he was like, I just come in, I do what's needed, I make suggestions, I I do what I like. I build components, whatever, like, create usage guidelines. And then he's like, I don't have to deal with any of the drama that comes with a company of, like, whatever, like, can we get more resources for whatever,
I
or
mean, yeah.
yeah. He was like, it's pretty sweet. And I was like, asking him about, like, the work, and he's like, it's really steady. He's like, I'm turning down clients. Like, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I mean,
It's
yeah.
it's definitely an area that I think that some people should like look at if they're interested, because it is. And if you want any advice, please like hit me up on Twitter, slide into them DMs at Lurk Moofy, because I can put you in touch with some folks to help out. Because I think that like there's work out there which is great. And I think that, yeah, there's some really great opportunities to get in there and really sell in design systems. We need those people in there as well, selling in the concepts of design systems into these companies, so that it isn't just a consultant's game in the future. I think that we need to, obviously have the end game of trying to get these roles being massively valued in house, so that people are hiring them and providing the support to the teams that are actually needed. I'm super aware of time, so I want to make sure we get on to some of the questions. I think there's a good question here from Kelly on do we have any general suggestions for nudging the business people out of the mindset of quicksilver bullet attitude? Or is it too big a culture shift to ask? Oh, I think I need about 15 minutes for this. Do you have any thoughts before I go on a rant?
I mean, we don't have 15 minutes. I think it's just it's setting those expectations of like a design system isn't just a short-term project, but like that's creating those components are just like the tip of the iceberg, like the whole getting people to use it, getting people to contribute to it, like that whole thing is a different beast, and that's not what you would hire a consultancy or an agency to just, do like when they make buttons, right? Like you have to have that as part of the package, or part of the expectation.
Yeah. I think part of it as well is just that, like, we are at that. I've mentioned it in I think the last 3 episodes that we've done of this, but we are at the peak of inflated expectations on the hype cycle for design systems. Like, we are at the point where a lot of our senior leaders know about design systems because they've read about it or they've heard about it or somebody's told them that it's the right thing to do, but they still don't know the value of it, and that's okay. Like, that's where we're at the moment. We just need to kind of know that and accept that there is a job. And I think that this is one of the ways that we need to um it's one of the ways around that silver bullet attitude is we need to take on that job as the people who like care about design systems in our organization, of making sure that our senior leaders and the like stakeholders know what it is that the design system is bringing to the org, what value, and figuring out how to talk to them in the language that they know to like get that value. And that probably means like setting up a whole load of measurement and metrics. If you're not measuring your design, Howie document's going to tell you all this, but if you're not measuring your design system, you won't have a happy design system at some point. That's what I said the last 2 years, so I'm assuming it's going to say the same thing this year. But anyway, small rant. There is also a white paper we did around selling selling in the value of your design system. You can check out at zeroheight.com/white paper. That's definitely worth a change. It is a big job, though. It's a big culture shift job, but it's a noble one. I think.
Yeah, I mean, just think about like the story that you can tell when you need a portfolio piece or at the end of it,
Oh,
right? Like I
100%.
think,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I got the design system resource, and here's how I did it. Actually, that might terrify senior leaders, so maybe don't put it in your CV. But wait, we have to spend how much on this? Um, I think that there's one that was a not a question but a comment that I thought was just worth noting, because I think it's really good. Is around somebody says from Ellie talking about how they come from a consultancy, has been brought into large organizations to create design ops practices and design systems and whatnot, and they were saying that it is the expectation setting is really hard, and it's people expect silver bullets and it ends up as silos. But actually, when it comes down to it, it's actually less about the work that the agency is doing and more about the communication between teams in the business and the change management with the systems. And I think that it's like, I don't know, change management. It's one of my favorite words that everybody kind of feels is icky. We should do a whole episode on change management. What do you reckon?
I mean, yeah, it's a lot of like design systems is behavioral change. Like that's why I have the other podcast called Beyond the Button, because there's so much more once you get past like designing that button and coding that button. There's it's behavior change. oh, my team's not adopting the design system, and that's a behavior issue, right? It's not anything else.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then there are some great questions in here, but we've probably only got time for one more. So I just want to actually, they're both from Kelly, so I'm just going to choose one of Kelly's, uh, which is
I like
um,
the one about the designer's career.
yes, that's exactly the one that I was going to do. At what point in a designer's career would you recommend making the niche jump? So Kelly's saying she's currently a junior, but very interested in design systems. Should they level up as a mid first? Or um, I want to hear your take.
I mean, old me would have said, "Yes, get experience and until you feel confident," but I feel like that's a very, uh, Asian American woman perspective where I feel like a cisgendered white man will just jump in and do whatever, so part of me is like, "F it, just jump in and do whatever." If that's what your heart
Yeah,
desires, right? Like, if that's what you want, you might not want it right now, and that's fine. But I think, think about where you currently are in your career. And if you're like, I don't really like this grind that I'm in, um, I want to explore something new, then go for it. I think if you are like, I kind of like where I am, but maybe at some point I want to navigate toward being a contractor and working on my own. I think that's also viable too. Like it's kind of like where your gut feels, right? Like where you
yeah.
feel most happiest.
I think that's the thing. I think that, and I think that because there's two ways to read this question as well around making the niche jump into design systems or making that niche jump into being a consultant on design systems. And I think that the same answer kind of levels out. I think you do need some experience in things to probably like get in there. In saying that, exactly what Michelle said, like the amount of experience you have might be enough. And to be fair, the industry will level you. Like the industry, it'll smooth you out. It's fine. But I don't think you should be put off by that either. Like I think it's like, try it and see what happens because we should be doing everything with the confidence of a mediocre white man. In just general because
Just
if
jump into it. Yeah.
yeah, to take away the silliness. That's not the word I'm looking for. But I think that it is. Other people will probably be doing the same thing, so might as well try it and see what happens. In saying that, I definitely like 3 years into my career as a designer, I made my company give me the title creative director, and then was really surprised that when I left there, I couldn't find a job as a creative director anywhere else. So like there is something to do with the amount of years experience for some roles that might be required. And I think that's the thing is I think to be fair, you can probably get away with most of it. What is it? It's they say that like um white able-bodied straight white men will tend to apply for jobs where they meet 50% of the criteria. Whereas I think it was men and women, but it was like
Yeah.
men 50% of the criteria, and women they need to meet 80 to 90% of the criteria
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
even think of applying for it. So it's like just keep that in mind that there are other people who are chancing it out there that will do it. And the best experience to level you up is experience anyway, is doing the job. So like just get out there and try.
Yeah, I mean, I think even with like as a junior, like I always like the idea of having production designers for design system team that's just focusing on building those components because then you learn about the component mechanics, but then you also learn about design systems. And if you don't like doing focused design system work, you can always go back. And if
Yeah.
anything, you have more skills because you are thinking more systemically and thinking cross products and platforms. So you can do design for anything. It doesn't pigeonhole you into uh,
Definitely.
like a dead end for yeah, so to speak. But I know we're running out of time, so should
In
we
fact, I think we've just run out of time. So that is it for today. If you've got any questions that you want to fire us for the next episode or to continue the chat from today, please send it through either via the Zero Slack community, which you can find at zeroheight.com/Slack, or you can get in touch with us on X/Twitter at zeroheight, or me at Like Moofy and Michelle at Soy Sauce Chin. Until then, see you next time.
yeah, see ya.